You're listening to the Today in Manufacturing podcast.
Hi, I'm David Manti, and welcome to the Today in Manufacturing podcast. With me today are Jeff Franke and Anna Wells. We each have about 15 years of experience covering the manufacturing industry. Every week, we take the 5 biggest stories on our websites and discuss the implications they might have on the industry going forward. Before we get started, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You could also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. Finally, if you want to email us, you can reach the podcast by emailing Jeff, Anna, or David at IEN.com with email the podcast in the subject line. Anna, how you doing this week?
Great. Back from vacation and ready to put the hammer down.
Oh, my, Jeff, the hammer's coming down this week.
Yes, that it was an observation by one of our listeners that Anna is undoubtedly the hammer of the podcast.
I got to Judge Judy this place. Keep some order around here.
Jeff, we're the nails.
Everybody has a role, you know?
Yeah, but I didn't think it was the nails.
Please overthink that a little bit.
Don't talk about fasteners of any kind, please.
We'll get to this.
You're not qualified.
I would just, for the record, like everyone to know, I do know the difference between nuts and bolts, but not always. Oh, that's all right. My career's in the tank. But now, before we get rolling, I also wanted to say that every Friday at about 1:30 p.m. Central Time, we go live on YouTube. So if you want to interact a little bit more with the podcast, if you want to ask questions to us live, you can reach us on our YouTube channel. I believe we broadcast it on our IEN YouTube channel. Just leave comments right in the comment section, and we'll answer them live throughout the podcast. Now, before we get into it, we have a word from our sponsor.
Oil Eater's household cleaners, industrial cleaners, and industrial equipment are specifically designed to replace dangerous solvents and are used throughout the world. Our safe water-based formula dissolves grease and grime for almost any surface and leaves a fresh, non-chemical scent. Our ultra-concentrated formulas are perfect for light, medium, or heavy cleaning and can be used on shop floors, in parts washers, to clean equipment, and more. VOC compliant, Oil Eater will do an excellent job in a multitude of applications, safely and cost-effectively, while reducing your chemical usage. Safe for the user, safe for the surfaces being cleaned, and safe for the environment. For more information, visit oileater.com or call 800-528-0334.
All right, and we're back. And before we jump into it, I just wanted to make sure everyone knew that I know the difference between a bolt and a nut.
I'm glad you've moved past this.
Except for that one time that thousands of people caught. All right. Our first story this week. The world's first robot burger in a box. Robo Burger, a company based in Newark, New Jersey, has unveiled the world's first robot burger in a box. Essentially, it's a red box for cheeseburgers. The 12-square-foot metal box contains a refrigerator and automated self-cleaning griddle. The meat is locally sourced, grass-fed, and 100% Angus beef. You place your order using a touchscreen, select your condiments, ketchup, mustard, and cheese, and pay for the burger. It takes about 6 minutes, and it costs about $7. Robo Burger's founders say they were driven to provide a hot food source for students, travelers, and busy workers at any time of day. Now, Anna, I know maybe not a beef burger in a box, but would you buy a bean burger in a box?
I think so.
Okay.
I'd have to scout the box out first and just see what it's about. But I actually like this story. I think it made me laugh a little bit because we love reinventing the wheel in America. Hot food vending has been around for a long time, especially globally. I think it's more common that you find like pizza machines, coffee machines on like a street corner in an airport or something in a shopping mall. Mm-hmm. Here, not so much, but it's not like it's never been done before. I think the newest iterations seem to be trying to capitalize on consumer demand for more made-to-order, higher quality, fresher kind of foods, not like a nasty microwave cheeseburger, which nobody wants, right?
Right.
Okay. I will always have a nasty microwave cheeseburger.
Okay, Jeff wants it.
Yes,
always. If anyone's watching.
Yes.
In the microwave cheeseburger industry, yeah.
Yeah.
Jeff is in. So what I thought was interesting about the timing is I actually was looking at some of the research out of the pandemic on food trends because a lot has changed just based on people's circumstances. You would think that people would become more packaged food friendly during the pandemic because I know a lot of people were overbuying for a while and having trouble getting some of that fresher stuff. But actually demand for fresh food went up during the pandemic. But I think what also happened was people were sort of pushed towards becoming more comfortable with non-traditional food acquisition platforms. For example, you were used to buying fresh at the grocery store and then the pandemic hit and consumers were enabled by things like same day delivery. I know me personally, I started to do more with like grocery pickup, grocery delivery, people started using Amazon more, Whole Foods, fresh daily delivery, that kind of stuff. If consumers are willing to pay more for fresh food, and they're also maybe open to new formats from which they will receive said food, then maybe this is a really good time for companies who are looking at the American market and saying, hey, why not here? Maybe right now, And I think that like there's some stigma that maybe needs unwinding with like, that like the gas station sushi was a bad choice thing.
Oh, yeah.
Like that joke that everybody knows. Like
it still plays with the gas station burger. There's like one or two gas stations you can trust and the rest are real wild cards.
That's true. But I do think that like, so in the Midwest here, we have Quick Trip and Quick Trip has kind of like changed the, change the stakes, I guess, raise the stakes.
Raise the burgers.
They have a lot of fresh food, ready-made food options that is like pretty quite high quality stuff that people will actually eat. I know, other regions of the country have that stuff too. So maybe people's minds might be changing a little bit around like where they would buy a burger.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily like something you just have to get at a traditional restaurant anymore, or you have to buy at the store and make it yourself. So I think maybe the time for putting something non-traditional out there and seeing if it works is, maybe now.
One of the things that I think is a real catch for this is everything has to be done on that touch screen. You have to be completed with it before that burger comes out. Because Jeff, I just feel like this has the potential to get gross really fast. Just having worked in kitchens that cook burgers, it's not a clean process. And
It should be.
well, I mean, no, I just mean like kitchens get dirty. Like kitchens get dirty. There's grease.
Yeah.
There's grease fires.
Well,
there,
it's a controlled environment somewhat. I get what you're saying.
Yeah, and
I understand.
burgers are greasy too. So that's what I'm saying. If the burger comes out and you still have to keep paying, like someone's gonna be like gnawing on this burger while they're also trying to pay. And I just see this Robo burger getting kind of messy.
Well, it's an automated, so there's steps. So nothing is happening until you pay. So
Right.
you got to pick what you want, you pay, then everything starts, the process for it. So, yeah, I mean, it will be interesting to see how it goes because like you said, you're talking about beef. It's going to be greasy. Are we going to contain that a little bit? I think due to the fact that the burger is maybe refrigerated as opposed to coming out of like the freezer or something like that,
Yeah.
might help a little bit. But yeah, there's definitely going to be some things involved there. It is NSF 25 certified, so does meet all the sanitary requirements for food service, which is a positive thing. I think when I looked at it and where they want to place these machines, travel centers, universities, kind of on the go type places like a Quick Trip or something like that, is the pricing is going to be interesting because right now they're at $7 a burger, which I know there's the convenience factor of it, but that's still a little pricey for a quarter-pound cheeseburger.
That's got to be a really good burger.
Yeah.
$7, yeah.
Now, granted, if I'm walking out of the airport at midnight driving home, I'm probably going to pay $15 for a couple cheeseburgers because I don't have to
$25,000.
stop anywhere and I want a burger or I want something to eat. So,
And you're expensing it.
unless you lose the receipt.
Oh, yeah. True.
Also,
always.
can I just point out that like we all became very accustomed to paying extra to order food off the internet so we don't have to talk to a person on the phone.
Mhm.
Do you think people will pay a premium for not standing in line and talking to like a human?
See, I'm the opposite because anytime I've tried to order food, especially not directly, anytime I've tried to use a food delivery service that wasn't directly associated with the restaurant, it has always been garbage. So for me, I've gone further away from it. We actually, other than in the pandemic, because we were doing carry out mostly to support local businesses and, mix it up from the 5 meals I made for 2 years straight. I don't know. Now, like, I feel like I've gone the other way where I want to go in, I want to have it made, I want to talk to people, you know. I've kind of gone the other way.
Yeah,
No.
I'm with Anna on this one. I think I've gotten
Less
much more comfortable just doing everything online.
Yeah.
Especially with the places that we've gone to, it's been very smooth. So
Yeah.
have not had the same issues that you've encountered, David.
Yeah, it's kind of weird that you like want to.
Talk to people?
I don't have a problem with that, but
Yeah, I mean, I'll do it if I have
it's
to.
much more, it's more efficient to go on the website and fill out a couple boxes. I mean, that's
True. For some things, yeah, like for certain chains, it is easier. But when you want to try maybe just individually, like privately owned one-off restaurants, I've had less success trying to use a service like an Uber Eats that, you know, they're calling, making the order.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and that like, cause those are intermediaries, right? But
Yeah.
yeah, if somebody has a website though, you would rather like friend the person on Facebook and then like ask them out to dinner and then put your order in or what? Like,
I mean, if that's how you were going about your ordering, maybe that's why it's not going. Maybe that's why you made the switch. You're just like, it's like, yeah, she ordered the lo mein, but then friended me on Facebook and she's messaging me that she wants it 3 stars instead of 4.
yeah, it was
That's
like,
weird.
it was for tomorrow because she wanted to get to know me better.
Yeah.
It was just very weird.
Wanted to make sure
Yeah.
I was the right person for the job. One thing that I thought was that this was, Jeff, I think this is like Ray Kroc's dream, right? A fully automated kitchen, no worker, perfectly burger in a box.
Yeah, potentially. You guys definitely went more in depth on the food ordering than I did during the pandemic. I'll say this much. We had some pretty smooth systems down.
Yeah.
The other thing is we had a reader, John Dearden, who must have, this guy is fascinating. He's chimed in on everything from maritime accidents to now automated food vending.
Mm-hmm.
So he was talking about a couple of things that he experienced. One was French fries, a vending machine for French fries.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which he said created a lot of issues because, like you were mentioning, the grease.
Yeah.
When you're deep frying French fries, that definitely became a fire hazard. So a lot of people were very reluctant to have that anywhere near their building.
Yeah.
So that one didn't work out so well. Another one he mentioned that he knew of was a pizza vending machine.
Mhm.
We've heard of these before.
Yeah.
But one of the issues he said that people encountered there was actually restocking it. It would just be used so quickly that the machine would be done in 10 minutes. Basically, they
Interesting.
couldn't keep enough stuff inside of it
Mhm.
to keep it going. So I think a lot of this, it will depend on the quality. It'll depend on the pricing. And again, if it really meets those needs to have something right away. If you're standing in line at a vending machine, you're just going to go stand in line at a fast food place too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, especially if I'm third in line and I know it's 6 minutes a burger, I'm not hanging out for 20 minutes for a $7 burger. And to your point about how things are changing, one thing that changed with the pandemic also are ghost kitchens, right? You know, a lot of these restaurants don't even have a storefront. They're completely online. And I saw it more of a transition for those, like in how ghost kitchens, they don't even have a delivery driver. Some just use those, like basically the Amazon bins where they give you a locker and you show up, grab your food out of the locker. So I could see it being a natural transition for that. It's just not something that, you know, I would necessarily be 100% on board with. Also, could we please tie in the screen licking technology? Because
so you could like taste the
Yeah.
So
like,
burger. You know what a burger tastes like?
taste the hot mustard before
it's a
you
burger.
put it on your burger.
Now it's a
yeah.
burger, but you know you're gonna have a menu in there at some point, and it's just like
See, I don't think you could. I don't think that's where this would go sideways.
no. Well, I mean, like we're talking. You know, you could drop as easily as you could drop that patty down. You could drop a chicken breast.
Do you think that? Okay,
You
so
couldn't?
the
You can't cook a chicken breast on a griddle like that.
Yes, you can. How do you think
No.
they do it at burger joints that sell a chicken breast? Do they have a special chicken cooking mechanism?
It's different than a burger, man.
It's not. I cooked them on the same thing.
Well-
same deal. You put the chicken breast down, and then you know what? You flip it, and then it's done, and you put it on a bun. Same thing.
I'm just gonna say the first person who licks that screen, that's the last burger they sell there. There's nobody
I
behind
just think
them.
there's a real
in line
opportunity for
after that.
synergy here. Also, the Robo burger, no pickle. So, where do you stand on that?
I'm fine with that.
All right, me too. I'm just like, I just figured I might have some like pickle lovers here that would be, it's not a burger until there's a pickle on it.
See, I just look at this as more of a commodity thing. It's just the burger. Like, I don't overthink it too much.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we knew that from the outset when you're like, I'll do a microwave burger.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh.
Jeff doesn't care.
Nope.
All right. For the refined palates on the panel, Our next story is Judge orders owner to demolish Packard plant in Detroit. On March 31st, 2022, a judge ordered the dilapidated Packard auto plant in Detroit to be demolished. He said it had become a public nuisance. The building's owner, Fernando Palazuelo, and his company, Arte Express Detroit, must demolish all structures on the property, which covers several blocks. Palazuelo owns 30 parcels that, quote, significantly threatening the public's health, safety, and welfare. Work has begun, or has to begin within 42 days of Sullivan's order, with cleanup completed within 90 days. If the work is not completed, the city will do it and bill Palazuelo. Now, Anna, Palazuelo built the building out of foreclosure, or bought it out of foreclosure for $405,000 in 2013. But he owes more than $1 million worth of unpaid drainage bills, property taxes, and blight tickets, which just sound like a great thing. But if he's already owing millions of dollars in these back taxes, I got a feeling he's not going to pay the bill to take it down either.
Yeah, this is a very strange case. And my thought on it might not be what you'd think, I guess. I don't know. It seems like Detroit's given this individual a long time to do something about the building. And I can see why they're frustrated with that. Mm-hmm. You know, it's been almost 10 years. It's in the same or possibly worse condition. However, and I love Detroit, so please understand that what I say comes with the best of intentions, but Detroit has a lot of crumbling infrastructure. Mm-hmm. Like they have a lot of shuttered industry. They have a lot of abandoned homes. And it's unfortunately kind of the hand that they were dealt. But it's to the point where the city is selling abandoned properties for pennies on the dollar in the hopes that they can be flipped and sold. And some of these neighborhoods can be revitalized. Second chances for some of these old manufacturing plants, whatever. But like I saw one estimate in 2019 that said that of Detroit's 139 square miles of area, 40 square miles of that consisted of abandoned property. That's how big the problem is in Detroit.
Wow.
So when you see this, and the article talks about blight tickets, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
And how much that this property has amassed in property taxes, this crumbling, abandoned space that was crumbling and abandoned when he bought it.
Right.
I don't think that this helps the redevelopment cause. I mean, you know, if you look at the AP article that we ran, he wasn't able to secure financing for the project. He formally asked for a tax freeze of 12 years, which clearly was not, that was in 2016.
2016, yeah.
I guess I don't understand how you can call this one of the most blighted areas in the city and then expect more than $1 million from this person in taxes, in blight tickets. Like, I don't usually drive in this lane, you know what I mean? But I think that, I normally think that entrepreneurs and business owners, they need to pay to play. They can't rely on handouts from the government for everything that they do. You got to spend money to make money just like everybody else. But in this case, how does this public case encourage developers to take a chance on some of these redevelopments in the Detroit area? To me, it's really bad PR, just to say the least.
Yeah.
I don't know. It doesn't look good to me, the fact that this, and there was a lot that story did not include in terms of how this person has behaved since he bought this. And it sounds like there's been a lot of, back and forth.
Yeah. He didn't even show up to the trial.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. But it certainly does not incentivize developers to look to some of these, because I know that other companies have been buying some of these old plants to try to redevelop them. It doesn't encourage people to do that. And Detroit needs that to be done,
Yeah. Well, and it is, Jeff, it's a big swing. And I think, I don't want to say he bit off more than he could chew, but this is, it would have been a massive project. What he was looking for to invest $50 million into it. And
more than that.
Yeah. And it means just the scale of it. I agree with you, Anna, that, we have, not to the scale of Detroit, but in the Madison area, we have areas where we don't know what we're going to do with that area. There was, near my home, there was a chemical factory that sat vacant for 50 years before they were able to, redevelop the land. So I think you're right. Jeff, what do you think? Does it have to be more of a partnership between private and public to try and revitalize these areas?
I think the city of Detroit saw this guy coming and thought, sucker, here you go. Take it. Do what you can. This is 3.5 million square feet. This is the largest abandoned factory in the world. The pure scale of this is ridiculous. And I'm sure when this entrepreneur first bought this plot of land, he was looking at 3.5 million square feet, 400 grand. Yeah, I'll figure out something to do with this. Until you get in there and you see just how immense this is. And because it's so large, it's also somewhat isolated. To be able to bring other businesses in there, like they wanted to put a brew pub in there and all of these other things, getting people there would be more than daunting.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I also think there's another factor at play here. Less than a mile away is a brand new GM facility. It's the
Hamtramck.
Hamtramck.
Where they're basically doing all of their new electric vehicle assembly work. Okay. So I'm guessing GM just put hundreds of millions of dollars into this facility. They're looking across the street, seeing this broken down Studebaker factory and going, no, we don't want this here. Detroit, we just put a bunch of money in infrastructure and we're putting all these jobs into the city. This thing needs to go. So I think that's where some of the patience with the city also ran out with this guy. Nothing was happening. I mean, this has been 5 years of work in progress here that something was supposed to take place. There's also been other bills that this guy has not reportedly paid in terms of for water cleanup. It's become a dump.
Yeah.
I mean, public nuisance is a pretty polite way of saying it's a public dump. How this place hasn't caught on fire somehow is amazing. 3 years ago, they had the pedestrian bridge that went across a major throughway collapse. Thankfully, nobody was hurt, but then that becomes a city liability to clean up, make sure there's no safety issues, all that. So there was a lot of different stuff here going into it. We look at some of the things around here. We've got the Oscar Meyer plant.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about.
That closed down recently. That's a huge facility. It's a third the size of this. I mean, less than a third.
Oh, yeah.
And they're still figuring out things to do there, which thankfully they've turned into some storage space and there is some other things going on. But again, 3.5 million square feet on the east side of Detroit. It's not a desirable place and the scale is just immense.
Yeah.
So I think all of those factors played into a part of this just finally becoming something the city had to step in and say, enough already.
Yeah.
We're knocking it down.
And you're right. I was a little bit low. He wanted to invest $350 million.
Yeah.
I missed the big three. And yeah, it's a 40-acre complex. Just the scale of that is unimaginable. And talk about it being a dump. There were tires, thousands of shoes for some reason, old television, and other trash that is just
boats. There were boats. People just dumped old boats in there.
That's I don't know. I understand that it at some point just becomes a lost cause, but I mean, maybe you're right. Maybe GM just saw a new parking lot.
Well, I think GM just said, we just don't want this blight, basically. We're trying to generate more excitement about what we're doing here, and the city agreed. Now, the city basically is going to be on the hook for this.
There's no way he's going to pay for that.
So,
and about the blight. So blight tickets in Detroit range anywhere from $55 to $10,030.
Do we think it's appropriate for the city of Detroit to sell a blighted plot of land to you and then issue you blight tickets?
No, that's, I think maybe the tickets started coming after the welcome had sort of
worn off. Yeah.
I mean, because I get it. If you're the city, you want to take a chance. You want it to be redeveloped. You want it to be a mixed use building. But, as a result of that desire to have it redeveloped, you're going to wind up making a couple of bad bets.
One of the things he was trying to do to raise money is he was actually giving tours of this place, if you can believe it or not.
Yeah.
He's selling tickets to go on a tour of this old car factory.
Well, just the photos of him in the factory. And I mean, the factory, it hasn't made cars since like the 50s. It has had other manufacturing since then. But even the photos that he took smiling in there, it's like, are you uncomfortably smiling because you think you're about to be crushed to death? I mean, it is by no means a safe area.
No, it does not look nice in there.
It's like you don't even want to squat there. All right. Our next most popular story this week. Former GE engineer convicted of, quote, textbook example of industrial espionage. After a 4-week trial, a former General Electric power engineer was convicted of conspiracy to commit economic espionage. Xiaoqing Zheng worked at GE Power and Water in Schenectady, New York, as a sealing technology engineer. He and his co-conspirators tried to steal GE's trade secrets regarding its steam and gas turbine technologies and give them to Chinese companies that research, manufacture, and develop parts for turbines. Prosecutors call it, quote, a textbook example of industrial espionage. Zhang was acquitted of 2 counts of trade secret theft and 2 counts of economic espionage, and the jury could not reach a verdict on 7 other counts, including trade secret theft, economic espionage, and lying to the FBI. Still, Jeff, when Zhang is sentenced on August 2nd, he faces up to 15 years in prison and a $5 million fine.
Yeah, it's interesting how things have developed over time. I've talked about before when I was in the automotive tool and equipment marketplace. We go to trade shows and there were individuals from China coming right up to booths, taking pictures of tools so they could go back and knock them off. Mm-hmm. The tactics have changed. They become a little bit more advanced, a little more sophisticated. And it also got me thinking a little bit about how this could impact hiring practices, maybe in a bad way, if there started to be some judgments or some sort of generalizations made about certain people and where they're coming from and things like that. Yeah. So I actually ran across this from the Center for Strategic International Studies, and they looked at all the Chinese espionage cases in the U.S. since 2000. And there's a couple of pretty interesting stats that stood out. First of all, 26% of these individuals who were involved with this were non-Chinese actors. So in other words, they were U.S. citizens who were recruited by the Chinese government to partake in these type of activities. Mm-hmm. Also, the other thing that stood out is 51% of these incidents were focused on commercial technologies like this one. About a third of them were for military, and then about the remainder, 15 to 16%, were for targeting towards U.S. civilian agencies or politicians. So they become a lot more differentiated even in what they're going for. It's not just the high-tech stuff, it's also more commercial things like this. We're looking at sealing technologies for turbines. The other thing is 41% of the incidents involved cyber espionage, and they were usually from state-affiliated actors. In other words, the Chinese government was backing them up in what they were doing. And my whole take on this is we've talked a lot about cyber attacks and how those have become more prevalent in the industrial sector. And I just think and it's not just China, there are other bad actors out there as well. As their tactics have advanced, the U.S. industrial sector also needs to start upping their game in terms of security and what they're doing to protect their intellectual property, things that they're putting on, making available either through the cloud or whatever their networking system is. All of this information, if it's too accessible, and we live in this age where we want greater visibility for the entire enterprise so everybody can see what's going on and make good decisions, well, there's some bad stuff that can come from that as well. So it's being more aware of the whole scope of what you're making available and protecting it as well. Probably also being a little bit careful on who you're allowing to see this information and how they're able to process it.
Did the Center for Strategic and International Studies say how many of these crimes also involved half-eaten peanut butter sandwiches? Or is it still just the
I
one?
don't think they went that far into that
deep?
but
just the
they
one.
did.
It's still just the one guy?
Yeah.
Okay. In talking about government-sponsored espionage, Zhang and his business partner, which was also his nephew, Anna, did receive financial support from the Chinese government. Mm-hmm. And they also coordinated with the government to find research agreements with state-owned Chinese institutions to develop turbine technologies. Mm-hmm. So it's difficult. It's difficult when you see stories like this and just know that they had the full backing of the Chinese government.
Yes, they did. But this is one of those cases, another one of those cases where the defendant is like claiming that his actions were mischaracterized. Mm-hmm. I read into it a little bit. His attorney has described him as a longtime loyal GE employee, of course. Mm-hmm. And when prosecutors described him as sneaky, devious, motivated by greed, his wife actually stood up in the courtroom and shouted, "No!" And they had to like stop the trial. It was like on TV, you know? Mm-hmm. I found it interesting that he was charged with 14 counts and they were not able to, like the jury acquitted him on 4 counts and then on 7 they were deadlocked. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if it was quite as textbook as the DOJ is wanting it to sound. Okay. I'm not saying that he didn't do this, but I do know that like his legal team pointed to some disclosures he signed in 2016 where he acknowledged to GE that he had some family business interests in China. Mm. And then obviously it was later determined that he emailed a bunch of files to himself using an encrypted password. And I think that was like the gotcha. But the defense made it sound like he wasn't aware that anything he was doing involving the Chinese government was like an intentional theft of trade secrets, that it was more like not this premeditated thing, that he was like giving presentations just out of his own knowledge base and he had family links back there, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. I'm not saying one way or the other, but I don't know. The jury seems like they were maybe
I don't know.
conflicted a little bit on some of these counts.
Maybe, but you're
Well,
still
not
looking
maybe.
at
They deadlocked on 7 counts.
Yeah.
And
but
they
he's
acquitted
still
him on 4
facing,
counts.
But what he has gotten charged with is
Yeah.
20 years in jail. That's
50.
not a small thing. So what he's been convicted
he could
of-
face that. He's not been sentenced yet.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
No, but I mean, you're right. So to Anna's point, it was 1 count out of what?
14,
16, 15. Okay.
My point is, I guess, is that like, so the DOJ, I feel like they really relish in these types of cases. And my opinion is that, yes, genuinely they're trying to go after them, but also it really pays lip service to the fact that they're trying to do something about this issue that really bothers a lot of corporate interests and business people, that they could be doing maybe if they added some teeth to some trade policies that I think would be more effective, and they're not doing. So to me, like this, sometimes I feel like they go after these people because they feel like, let's get them and let's make a big deal about it,
Mhm.
and let's issue a press release and people will feel great about like what we're doing to solve this problem. And
Yeah.
I don't know how
was-
effective it is. I feel like some of these people end up getting targeted potentially, or, you know, I don't know. I don't know if he's mischaracterized here, but it does. Some of these acquittals and deadlocks make it feel like maybe it wasn't as textbook as the DOJ is making it sound like it was. But
Well, it was also 2018. It was the 2018 DOJ that called it a textbook example of economic espionage. So not that there was a different agenda, but maybe there was a different language that was being used back in 2018 and the different administration in terms of targeting people that were working with the Chinese government. So that is, 4 years old in terms of.
I guess, but the fact, I guess I would go on the other side of this. I think it's important to hammer these guys as hard as you possibly can because there needs to be a big deterrent. And for so long, there's been able to get away with so much at the detriment of a lot of U.S. manufacturers. And we talked about that in the article. It talks about the loss of jobs, factories shutting down. I worked with a lot of small businesses that were just had their IP stolen, just outright stolen. So when it comes out like this, I would rather see law enforcement go a little overboard in targeting these folks so that there is less even contemplation of doing something.
It's
I have
more of a
hard-
deterrent. Yeah.
And as hard of a deterrent as there can be.
yeah, I'm not arguing that. I think that they are doing that. I think that they're going out of their way to make a big deal about it.
And as far as not knowing what was going on, when you're sharing information with the Chinese government and they're paying you for it, you know what's going on.
You do feel like for someone of his like academic standing and understanding, and he's obviously a very intelligent person, that if this was all accidental, then you're a pretty naive person. But yeah, it's hard to know.
All right. Stealing is bad.
Don't do it.
Don't do it because chances are you will be caught and it's gonna go bad. It's gonna go so bad. All right. Our next most popular story. Ukraine Mondelez plant sustains, quote, significant damage. Chicago-based Mondelez is the maker of Oreo cookies and other snack foods. The company has 133 manufacturing plants around the world. The company's CEO said he would close manufacturing plants in Ukraine when Russia invaded. The company scaled back, quote, non-essential activities, but continued to operate in Russia. Mondelez defended its decision to stay open in Russia by saying they were helping maintain the food supply. At the same time, an Oreo plant in Trostianets, a town in eastern Ukraine, sustained, quote, significant damages as a result of Russia's invasion. Telecom outages have made it difficult to reach all employees, but the company doesn't believe any employees were injured in the attack. Now, we've seen a lot of companies take many different tracks here. People have pulled out immediately. People scaled back to scaled back everything except essential processes. And some people have just kept business as usual. So what was your take on how Mondelez is dealing with the entire situation?
Well, yes, to your point, it's hard to cover the story of the Ukrainian plant without also mentioning the Russian operations of Mondelez, which are causing a bit of controversy and have been since the start of this conflict.
Mm-hmm.
And while many companies have ceased doing business in Russia, Mondelez has not. Do you believe the Mondelez line here that they've kept Russian plants running to ensure the continuity of the supply chain? Because I think for a lot of people, it wasn't enough when the CEO said that they would transition to basic offerings
Mhm.
and discontinue all new capital investments, stop advertising in Russia. Like the New York Times put the company on blast just very recently, actually, saying that, quote, "We're pretty sure that Russians can live without the company's chewing gum and chocolates until Mr. Putin decides to stop killing Ukrainians."
Yes.
And to be honest, like the company really hasn't been super forthcoming about what products it believes are essential.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wonder what the company's Ukrainian workforce, who lose much more than their jobs in this case, what they're thinking right now, I guess, about their employer. I mean, I understand that global companies are faced with a lot of geopolitical challenges, and it's a very difficult balancing act. But Mondelez may see some future consequences for how it's handling this. The New York Times op-ed that I read this quote from.
Yeah. It's a good quote. I had the same one.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. That's why it's deleted now.
Oh, okay.
No.
It closed with the following line: Americans who are sickened by businesses' indifference to the bloodshed can make their voices heard. If the companies won't boycott Russia, boycott the companies.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I mean, Mondelez could see more of that if they don't take a harsher stance here. I'm not sure what their plan is going forward, but I guess we'll see.
No, especially as we've talked before on the podcast, I've mentioned it personally, when people don't like what's going on and they're looking for something they could do to create change, and it could be as simple as, I'm not buying Oreos anymore for the immediate future or for however long. That could be a substantial impact to Mondelez and its operations as a result of the choices it's making in Russia. And I mean, I would like to think that the Ukrainian workforce could be aware of what they're doing in Russia, but I just don't know how much information is out there for them to even be aware that that's happening.
Yeah.
Jeff, what were your thoughts on how Mondelez is approaching operations in both the Ukraine and Russia?
Yeah, I mean, it all bleeds together. Unfortunately, whenever you look at this, this was something that happened in Ukraine. Obviously, you're looking at why it happened and what's going on there. It led me to kind of investigate. The Yale School of Management puts out an index where they're tracking everything that's going on with companies in Russia and what they're up to. They track about 800 companies. 600 of them have in some way, shape, or form announced that they're voluntarily curtailing operations in Russia to some degree beyond what's required by international sanctions. Okay, so and they rank them between an A, B, C, D, and F. Now, when we look at Mondelez and specifically, they get a D. They fall into the category of buying time, which are companies postponing future planned investment, development, and marketing while continuing substantive business in Russia. Okay. So they've got a long way to go. But they're not alone. The unfortunate reality is there are still 24 companies based in the U.S. that get an F in terms of what they're doing in Russia. These are companies that are continuing business as usual in the country.
Who are some of the Fs, Jeff?
So here are some of them that really stood out to me. This is really unfortunate. Danaher, huge industrial company. Donaldson Filtration, Dover Corporation, Huntsman Corporation, Koch or Koch Industries.
Oh, yeah, Koch Industries.
Owens Corning, Parker Hannifin, Pentair, Zimmer Biomet, ZTE. These are some of the bigger ones that I recognized.
Wow.
Again, there's still 24 of them that have not adjusted anything in terms of what they're doing in Russia. Now, this story, because of these things, this is why this story needs to continue to be told and reinforced, because there does need to be pressure put on these companies. And when you look at Mondelez, at first you can say, okay, they're a food company. They want to continue producing food for the people in Russia. However, there's still people in Russia who think that their army is going up against U.S.-backed Nazis.
Right.
Yeah. You read the New York Times article as well.
Yeah.
Or that's been reported a number of places. So what's going to get these people to understand what's going on? They obviously can't trust their government. They're going to see it when it impacts their day-to-day life. So it's unfortunate that these individuals would have to continue suffering as well based on the act of their government. But how else are they going to understand? We've got companies that are still continuing to do what they're doing, and thus we run more of these types of articles and bring more of this stuff to light. And if these companies don't respond, the people in Russia aren't going to understand what the rich, Putin and the other oligarchs are doing to put all these other individuals in Ukraine, and who knows where it goes from there, in greater danger as well.
Here.
And how that needs to impact them. So these stories need to continue to be told, even though we're preaching to the choir a little bit. The more pressure we can put on the international community to get that message infiltrated into more people in Russia, the better. And maybe the sooner we can see something stop.
I was kind of surprised with some of the names that you rattled off having an F.
Yeah.
It's very disappointing.
Yeah.
Anna, what were your thoughts?
On the F companies?
Yeah.
I mean, I think I agree with Jeff that like the more the stuff gets, I mean, because for us to not know that, and we cover this sector, there's still a story to be told around what's happening out there. So.
All right.
When you look at what some of these companies supply, that's going to impact people on a day-to-day basis if it goes away.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and Reed talked about it a few weeks ago when we talked about the automotive supply chain and how that's going to slow down and start impacting people. I think you're right, Jeff, is that until these other operations come to a halt and it's just day-to-day business as usual for a lot of people, no one's going to know because of the amount of misinformation out there. So, I mean, we got to do an IN now on all the Fs, huh?
Yeah, keep it up.
I like it. All right. Our most popular story this week, brought to us by Anna Wells. Logbook reveals all the cars that sank on Felicity Ace. Top Gear recently found itself in possession of the manifest log from the Felicity Ace, the large cargo vessel that sank 13 days after a fire broke out on board. Top Gear admitted that the ship's log was difficult to read, but there were 561 Volkswagens on the ship, 189 Bentleys, 1,117 Porsches, and 85 Lambos. That's Lamborghini. In case you didn't get that. There was also a 2015 Ford Mustang, one 2014 Kia Soul, a 2018 Nissan Versa Note, and 12 tractors. The Ace was also transporting a 1990s-era Honda Prelude that was reportedly the 65th SIR model ever built and owned by a man named Gary, who claims online he won't receive any insurance money for his drowned vehicle because of, quote, complications. And that's really besides the point, and just kind of a bummer for Gary. On the bright side, Lamborghini is going through, quote, great efforts and likely expense to remake the 15 Aventadors that went down with the ship. So, Anna, silver lining?
Yeah, I know. I like how they had to make a big deal about how hard they're working to like replace those cars.
Mm-hmm.
We had to press the button to turn the production line back on. I'm just kidding. I know there's more to it than that. So Motor One called this situation a car-tastrophe. And for anyone who read that, I am very sorry.
Yeah.
The people you really feel bad for, I think, are not the ultra wealthy who won't get their luxury vehicles worth six figures, or even the dealers who, all these are insured, right, coming straight from the factory. It's the people who lost their the seemingly like random collection of vehicles.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. Like, that's what the odd tidbit was in the story. Like, there are these collectors that had these rare one-off vehicles.
Yeah.
It's devastating to them. And I mean, you poke fun at Gary, but he's got a point.
No, he does. And like the 2015 Mustang, the 2014 Kia Soul, there was a 1977 Land Rover Santana, which we did not talk about in our breakdown, but that's being described as extremely rare and irreplaceable. Mm-hmm. So like, what were some of these vehicles doing on the ship? Well, it looks like the one-offs seem to be destined for private buyers. So just, whoever had a specific need for this 2014 Kia Soul, I would like to know why you can't get that elsewhere, but apparently it had to be shipped over an ocean. But, the used car market is super tough right now, so who knows?
It was owned by Brad Pitt.
It may have been. I can't corroborate David's statement, but it may have been. Mm-hmm. I did actually read the Facebook post from the Prelude's intended recipient, Gary Hawkins was his name. And Gary was apparently a Prelude enthusiast and waited for the chance for years to obtain this car so he could restore it. And he was pretty devastated. And he said he's going to be looking for another 1996 SIR to restore, and he will do so no matter what, even though he's not getting any money back from this car falling deep into the depths of the ocean. So if anyone's got a lead on that, Gary would like to know. And crazier still, like Top Gear, it was actually their Netherlands outfit who got their hands on the actual manifest log. They said that there's another more complete manifest that lists even more collateral that's not even been reported.
Man.
So, yeah, I mean, all this stuff is like a salvage mission now, probably that's going to actually cost potentially millions of dollars because they're going to need to pull some of this stuff out of the ocean, I think, to mitigate the environmental damage. And apparently that process could take years. So bad situation all around.
Well, maybe once they fish it out, Gary will have another chance at the Prelude.
Do you think he'll still want it?
No.
He wanted to restore it.
Yeah. The reason is because that engine's pretty rare.
Restore it.
Okay.
So I don't think that waterlogged engine's going to be worth a whole lot.
You can't
You can't
dry out an engine?
You just get a hairdryer, right?
Well,
And just-
David, I'd hate to tell the guy who knows his hardware so well about engine specifics, but
I sometimes mess up nuts and bolts.
no, I don't think he wants that engine.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm just saying it might be available once the salvage is done.
Maybe. I went down the Prelude wormhole. Like, I was curious
you did?
why this was such a big deal. And apparently it just is the fact that these were tough to find in North America. When they initially came out, they weren't like super expensive or anything like that. But the fact that he went to this extent to like put it on a container and send it over. Yeah, because it's an enthusiast vehicle. Apparently I was not aware that the Prelude had such a passionate following.
I guess.
It did. One of the things that I got started looking at too is just because we've been talking about these cargo ship issues like for the last 18 months or so. And apparently it's coming down to a lot of them are overstacked. We've got worse weather going on. Looked at some number here. Actually, Al Jazeera did a breakdown in 2020. There was the highest amount in 7 years in terms of number of cargo containers lost overboard on ships.
7 years, huh?
And they just attributed it to the fact that e-commerce is driving demand. We're putting more stuff on these ships, stacking it up too high, and then you throw in more bad weather. It's a bad mix. So we're losing more stuff. And you can see like even the way 2021 was pacing before they were able to finish off the report, it was going to set a new mark as well. So we're just losing more stuff because we're buying more stuff, harder to get, not being as safe as we should be.
What happened in 2013? And have you turned the volume on your laptop off?
Wow. It's a pop-up, man. Sorry.
He had to get you back for that nuts and bolts comment.
I don't know a nut from a bolt, but I know how to silence my computer. And by silence, I mean mute. As it turns off.
Because you don't have to type.
Yeah. I'll type all day. No, seriously, what happened in 2013? Was there like a large...
I don't know what happened there,
maritime
but
disaster?
it was huge uptick, in 2013 too.
Okay. One thing, I kind of focused on the Lambo part of the story because I thought that was interesting. You know, they said there will be no additional cost to those who ordered the vehicles besides the time waited, which is good for the super wealthy that have been impatient.
It's been a hard time for the super wealthy.
Yeah.
You know, the last couple of years has just been a tough time.
No more hard breaks for the super wealthy. Gary, going to take another L. But since the Aventador run only ended a little bit ago, the factory is actually going to be able to remake the supercar pretty quickly. And to your point, it's not just pushing a button. They are hand assembled, and it was Lamborghini's last gas-powered V12 engine project. So it's going to take a little bit of doing.
It'll take some doing, for sure.
So the Volkswagen, Bentley, and Audi's lost account for about $401 million in vehicles.
That is not a low number.
No, but the Aventadors, 15, they lost 15 of them, account for more than $7.5 million in losses.
Puke.
Again, luckily, they're not going to cost them another dime. Just a little more patience.
Yeah.
All right. Well, before we move on to In Case You Missed It, we have another word from our sponsor.
Oil Eater's household cleaners, industrial cleaners, and industrial equipment are specifically designed to replace dangerous solvents and are used throughout the world. Our safe water-based formula dissolves grease and grime for almost any surface and leaves a fresh, non-chemical scent. Our ultra-concentrated formulas are perfect for light, medium, or heavy cleaning and can be used on shop floors, in parts washers, to clean equipment, and more. VOC compliant, Oil Eater will do an excellent job in a multitude of applications, safely and cost-effectively, while reducing your chemical usage. Safe for the user, safe for the surfaces being cleaned, and safe for the environment. For more information, visit oileater.com or call 800-528-0334.
All right, and we're back with In Case You Missed It, the stories that maybe weren't as popular on the websites this week, but stand to make a big impact on the industry going forward. I'm going to go first this week with a story about Mattel. Mattel advancing nearshoring in Mexican mega factory. Mattel, the company behind the WWE Hasbro Retros and other toys, is nearshoring its operations to its plant in Monterrey, Mexico. They mean a lot to certain people, Anna.
All right.
The plant has a 200,000 square meter footprint and employs nearly 3,500 workers. The company spent about $50 million, that's where that $50 million came from earlier, to expand the facility, which is now the company's largest plant. The company closed 2 factories in Asia and plants in Canada and Mexico and moved operations to this mega factory. Mattel plans to double the plant's investment, another $50 million, over the next 5 years. Mattel said it will be more profitable and competitive than to have the product close to the consumer. Mattel's Latin American managing director, Gabriel Galvin, told Reuters that this is the latest example of how supply chain problems have created renewed interest in nearshoring from multiple industries. Jeff, I found this particularly interesting because we've heard a lot about reshoring, and this story made me turn my head because we haven't heard a lot about nearshoring.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Mexico has been on the radar for a bit. You know, when we look at the low-cost manufacturing, as well as the proximity to the U.S. market. So it makes a lot of sense. What's going to be interesting here, too, is you need truck drivers.
Oh, yeah.
For that, which we know there's also a shortage of. So you can appreciate combining operations to take advantage of those efficiencies, but there's still going to be some logistics challenges for, I would think, Mattel, especially if you're pumping out that much product out of one location. As far as the nearshoring goes, it will be interesting to see how that competes with a lot of the reshoring activities we've seen in the U.S. We still see a lot of folks, especially in the automotive sector, really hitting the southeastern part of the country. We do see some interesting things going on in California as well. So will these things completely balance out? Probably not. I think it is too much of a cost difference. But what it will come down to, and this is a little bit different because Mattel had other facilities in this area as well, so they are used to the operating environment. But will new companies, if they're contemplating the U.S. versus Mexico, will this start weighing into their decisions? Seeing a company this big, making this big, much of an investment in Mexico.
Well, and I was just thinking, Anna, that nearshoring, while not as good for the U.S. as reshoring, is still could potentially be a huge trend with the supply chain issues that we've seen.
Yeah. And, it's a little better for the environment if your end market is the U.S. as well.
Yeah.
What are these retro? I'm looking at these Hasbro WWE retro figures. And
what you're looking at right there is what I can only assume is wave 1 of the most recent release of WWE Hasbro retros that features Mr. T, Mean Gene Oakland, Bob Backlund, and Roddy Piper. Maybe.
Wow.
That's only what I think.
Might be those
It's
details.
certainly not sitting on my credenza, but everyone's got something. And
Credenza.
Everybody has pro wrestling toys on the credenza.
No. They're currently still packaged. I got to hide them in the basement. They're not allowed on the credenza. That's just, they're in a queue right now. I still get to touch them before they go away. So, everyone's got their thing. And I liked the old, from the 90s, they made these small Hasbro toys. And then Mattel, to kind of make a little money off it, made these retros, which are new character or new figures that are made in the old style, but just really cheap. They're kind of garbage. But, for suckers like me, you gotta have it.
Who's your favorite guy to go after, your wrestler? Is there one that's more rare or something?
Oh, yeah. No. So there are rare ones. There's this wrestler called Adam Bomb, and there's wrestler Crush.
From Demolition.
Well, after he left Demolition and became 90s, what was the neon colored Crush? But there are some rare ones out there that are difficult to get your hands on unless you're drinking and playing on eBay.
Do you have this set where
I do have that set?
Oh, and it's 2 different tans of Hulk Hogan, one really tan, one maybe beginning of summer.
I do have all the variations of the Hulkster, as well as that Andre the Giant. I just got that Berserker, and that's just one of the rockers. Typically you like to see him in the set.
It's all Shawn Michaels, no Marty Jannetty.
Yeah, this is how you spend your money.
This is not how I spend. Yeah,
Anna, did you or your brothers watch wrestling growing up?
No,
I
never did.
It's just one of those things, between this very specific line of toys and the original Nintendo games. Those are my two things.
I think it's cool.
Yeah, it's so the retros though. I can't endorse them because they are just kind of like a cheap money play for people like me that are almost in our 40s and like, oh, I don't need it, but I have it, and it's really it's all the Mr. T in that set. It's not a great set. Who wants a Mean Gene character? I mean, except for staging, but in order to get Mr. T, you had to buy the other three. I'm like, all right, whatever. I mean, we'll go down a different wormhole. I'm like ordering customs, and I just got this like rare Al Snow. It's coming. It's weird. Anyway.
Wow.
I'll step
And
out.
now they're
from
made in
this
Mexico.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're but closer. They've been nearshored. Anna, what is your in case you missed it this week?
Okay, so speaking of the truck driver shortage, Walmart is doubling down on recruitment for long-haul truckers. The company has launched a training program that gives employees who work in its distribution centers a chance to become certified Walmart truck drivers through a 12-week program taught by the company's established drivers. They've also announced, and this was a little bit buried in the AP version of this story, but that they've increased starting annual pay for long-haul drivers to up to $110,000 annually.
Wow.
And I think the rate is just a testament to how challenging it is right now in this job market and trying to fill these positions. So interestingly enough, I read a report recently that said that up to 500,000 long haul trucking jobs will be eliminated if autonomous vehicle technology can advance to accommodate all weather conditions, which is sort of its like limitation right now.
The albatross.
Except for experts believe that it's attainable within the next few years. They're working on it, right? It's just not there yet. But long haul trucking is really like one of the first and most, I think, lucrative applications for this because there's last mile and first mile stuff that you need a human to do, but there's tons of highway time that you really don't. And that's the part that people hate. So the question is like, is this good or bad? On the one hand, these have the potential to be very high-paying jobs as evidenced by Walmart's activity here. But on the other hand, the turnover rate is still extremely high. And so like the problems with work-life balance, I don't know if those can be worked out. I just don't know if that can be solved by pay. And so, because prior to this, Walmart was paying still like $80,000 a year for long-haul truck drivers.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's a lot of money, right? So
maybe the turning point is six figures. I know there's a lot of people that are looking for a new career out there, and maybe that, the prospect of $110,000 could be a turning point for them.
And maybe it will be, but I do think that this application is one where I think, automation may not be the bad guy. I think that we do have to maybe eat up some of those jobs with autonomous trucking here. And, Walmart's trying their way right now to continue to operate with the e-commerce demand that they're facing right now. But, if even the ATA, which is the American Trucking Association, they say that their turnover rate annually for long haul truckers is like sometimes 90%.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
That's how do you get around that? That's a problem that you can't solve with $10,000 more dollars. You just can't, something else is going on there. That job is just, a lot of people don't like it.
It's demanding. It's too,
yeah.
There's a lot that involves. I like this for a couple of reasons. Number one, it opens up a higher paying job to more people that I think it's the kind of job that you either sort of feel you gravitate towards it or you don't really think about it.
Right.
So when you take somebody working in the warehouse, it gives them a chance to make exponentially more, as well as maybe go down a career path that they hadn't thought about before. And that is so desperately needed right now.
Yeah.
The other thing is I wonder if and this is just totally, when you talk about all of the issues and challenges with long haul driving, as well as the need for them, maybe there can be some sort of hybrid approach where you're driving a couple weeks, you're in the warehouse a couple weeks, just so you can have some balance there to even it out so it's not such wear and tear. I mean,
it's a really good idea.
These guys who have been driving truck for a while, their back, their knees, everything. I mean, it takes a physical toll as well. So maybe Walmart is onto something here in offering new opportunities and maybe developing some sort of hybrid approach.
I like that idea.
What do you think the runway is until an autonomous truck is actually? I mean, I you see articles that say it could happen as soon as 2024, but realistically, what, 5 to 10 years?
I think well within 10 years. I mean, they're being tested now. And that the long haul part of it is the easiest part to address with autonomous trucking. So
it just has to get to the gate, and then a guy jumps in and backs it up. Right.
Yeah,
I think that's what you're going to see. Maybe you do something with the way stations, where they're strategically placed, and that's where you have somebody pick up the truck essentially and guide it in. So, like Anna said, they don't have to do those cross country hauls.
Yeah, there are not enough high quality. Well, there are plenty of high quality podcasts, but this is not a job for me.
To like sit there and keep entertained while you're driving, you would need like.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's
you mean being the passenger in like an autonomous one or driving?
Oh no, driving one. We have actually a former colleague of ours used to be a long haul trucker, and he talks about how it was a great opportunity. He's never listened to so many books in his life, but it had a finite amount of time that he could do it.
Yeah,
and he had to walk away and do something else just because it wore on him.
Well, I think what you see with a lot of those guys, they start out doing the longer hauls like that, and then they gradually find a better job where they're home at night.
Yeah,
so they're out still on the road all day, but they can sleep in their own bed. So
right. Well, talking about things that help you sleep, Jeff, what is in case you missed it this week?
So I picked out an article talking about how Enos can sense fine whiskey. So I did not realize this, but apparently there is a lot of issues talking about fraud and basically misrepresenting some of the higher priced brown alcohols out there like whiskey. So project led by some professors and researchers at the University of Technology, Sydney, have basically developed a sensor-based system called Enos to identify differences between, and they use 6 different whiskeys and they could identify them by their brand name, where they were made, and their styles, and did it in less than 4 minutes. So the ones that they were looking at specifically were Johnny Walker Red and Black Label, Ardbeg, Chivas Regal, and Macallan's 12-year-old. And the study basically showed that the Enos, this tool, reached 100% accuracy for detecting the region, 96% for brand, 92% for style. So Nose E, or E-Nose, it's designed to mimic human smelling factors. It has 8 gas sensors to detect odors in a vial of whiskey. In the past, they'd have to rely on a tasting expert, a connoisseur that would be able to taste the differences. I was not, again, aware of how much fraud and counterfeit whiskey was going on out there, but apparently it is a problem. The other thing I think it's interesting, though, really is this technology can be used in a lot of other areas as well. They talk about perfume, but it can also get into a lot of other areas where counterfeiting and manufacturing, especially these higher priced items, is a big deal. People are losing tens of thousands of dollars on knockoffs. To have some technology in place that could help preserve some of those profits, I think is a good thing. Thought it was interesting.
Well, there's a couple of things there, Jeff. One, the nosy, which is just, they nailed it. It's right on the nose. Come on. But it has great, these type of e-noses have also a lot of applicability in manufacturing in terms of sensing if there's a gas leak or any sort of other dangerous particulate that's in the air. They've even talked about drones flying around the facility or around the property with these e-noses to be sort of a monitor. The other thing is, so how many counterfeit whiskeys do you think we've had? Because sometimes someone opens up that $100 bottle and you sip it and you're just like, oh, really? Nothing but hot fire in there.
Yeah, I don't know. My whiskey is not that expensive. So, I mean, I do like some of the nicer stuff, but not, I don't know. Not that I was worrying about it being knocked off, I guess, at Costco.
Well, we did. So at my grandfather's funeral, my brother brought a bottle, like one of a really good bottle of whiskey that my grandpa had. And we were all going to take these shots at the service, or after the service was over. Everyone got shot glasses and we took it. And it was just like, when we took the shot, and it was like, oh, she's a sipper. She's a sipper. Just like, oh, it was so, and it was, it was still a good time spent with family. But got
a whole lot better after that, right?
Yeah. The ride was a lot easier. No, it was, anyway, go aheed.
Well, I was going to say some of the other applications too, just in detecting, they talk about illegal, like animal smugglers and things like that being used as technology for that as well. You would think really even for any type of counterfeit substance, if you're looking at drugs, other things people might be able to smuggle in. So
what? Illegal animal parts?
Well, poachers, bringing in.
That's a real rhino.
Horns, skins.
Oh, no. I suppose
stuff like that.
If we're getting even dark, it's probably got applicability in human trafficking too, I would assume.
potentially.
So how is this being used to detect whiskeys? Like, where in the supply chain process is this being used? Like, after you buy a bottle, you crack it and you do this at home?
I think when you're talking about import-export type situations, making
So,
sure
like,
it is legit stuff.
At like customs, they would pull
I would think
like
customs,
a sample bottle out and do it.
Customs or even a bigger distributor,
Mhm.
if they're taking in a larger shipment.
So it's for QC kind of in the middle. You're not like,
I don't think this is a consumer tool.
yeah.
I mean, one day, like
Depending on how much you're paying, though. I mean, if you're shelling out, some of those Irish whiskeys that I really love, they can get up there. And if you're shelling out $500,000 for a bottle of booze, maybe you have one of these to make sure it's legit.
500,000?
500
Yeah.
to
Oh.
1,000.
Oh,
I was
I
like-
heard 500,000.
I am
too.
not.
Yeah,
I was
like,
just like,
pony
my
up for
goodness.
Enos for sure.
Yeah, get on me about my retros. This guy's spending $500,000 on bottles of booze. Like,
I do have a pretty successed podcast. So
man,
Are you guys getting paid?
I did get a free hat.
I had to steal it.
No, this is still like prototype. This is a working prototype, but I do think that any sort of move that can be made in order to cut down counterfeiting would be helpful.
I know. It's just kind of funny to me that like, so you
This is
get
where we
it.
start.
Well, no, like you get it, and then you're like, I don't know, and then the Enos is like, actually, that is expensive. Like, like Enos is just like your snotty friend. That like, just that's poor man's whiskey.
Just the person that is over the top with the wine at the table, just like, you know what I'm picking up? I'm picking up like some vanilla and a little bit of, is that like root beer?
Root beer.
Yeah. Just, no. I think it's a tactic. I mean, we've all been at that dinner.
Root beer wine, huh?
I mean, yeah.
All right.
Jeff, how are we looking on trivia this week?
I'm ready. You want me to go first or last?
That's right. Trivia is a part of Final Thought. It's not a part of In Case You Missed It. Let's move on to our final thoughts. All right, Anna. Got a final thought this week?
Oh, sure, yeah. I sure do. I appreciate Andy filling in for me again last week. I was on vacation with my family, which was very nice, and I came back rested, but also fuzzy, and everyone's been a bit cranky this week.
Oh, yeah?
Because like the week back from vacation and no one wants to get out of bed, and then I'm the one who's getting all the flack for that. Like I invented the system.
Just, why'd you do this, Mom?
Yeah.
Like, what, take you on a magical adventure for a week?
I
Sorry.
know, right? Like I don't like set the start time for elementary school. Get out of bed.
What was the highlight of the trip?
So we went to Branson, Missouri, and which the scenery there is beautiful. And there's a beautiful aquarium that it's like made out of this like that looks like a disco ball, except it's an octopus. The building looks like it. You have to look it up, but
That's great.
it was a really nice aquarium. And my 4-year-old son got a hammerhead shark stuffy that he named Hammer. And
After you.
Oh,
Named
man.
it after Mom. He knows.
and Hammer lives at our house now. But it was it was a great trip.
That's awesome. Well, welcome back. It was good to
Thanks.
have you back in the office. And we welcomed somebody new to the IN and MNet team.
We did.
Ben Munson joined the team, and it was his first week. It was really great to see. We've worked with him in the past. It's good to see him in the office again. His style is awesome, and look forward to seeing him in the IN videos probably Monday.
Guest star on the podcast someday too, I'm sure. So look out for that.
Absolutely. For my final thought, I just wanted to reiterate that I do know the difference between nuts and bolts. Despite my attempts to wash my poor attempts off the internet. No, I actually our studio has a toolbox in it, and during the commercial break, I frantically ran to it looking for a nut and bolt, to which producer Eric just said, "You know what you're looking for in there?"
David thought that it would lend credibility to himself if he just held a nut or bolt.
I saw it playing out where it's just like, this is a nut and this is a bolt. It just made sense, but all I could find were what I believe are screws. All right. And the other thing was for my final thought last week, I talked about going on the first date night in like 4 years with my wife, and we had a great time. So good. We're going to try it again this Saturday. And we'll see how it goes.
Good deal.
Yeah. The babysitters crushed it.
Good to hear.
Yeah.
Good to hear.
Jeff, your final thought this week.
Final thought is I'm going to go right into trivia.
Yes.
All right.
So the question from last week was basically when you apply a tourniquet, there's a couple things you should do before leaving the individual you applied the tourniquet to. We had a bunch of people that did get it right.
You're leaving? the
Handed
person?
out a bunch of hats. Yeah, so you apply the tourniquet.
And then you just walk away?
Well, there may be other people you need to help.
Oh, I see.
Or there's
Okay.
nothing more you can do for this individual. You want a more highly
All
trained
right, here's
medical
your tourniquet.
professional.
All right, and
We're
I will
out.
see you later.
But, yeah.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, that's basically how it goes.
Okay.
There's two things you should do. And number one, as I was trained in the Army, is to put a T on their forehead so that the next person who's coming in to take care of that person at the next level of medical care knows a tourniquet has been applied,
Okay.
because it can be overlooked. So because you're cutting off blood flow, you want them to know that. You also want them to know what time the tourniquet was applied so they know how long that extremity has been going without blood. So those were the two acceptable answers. Like I said, we had a bunch of people get it right. Sent out
Really?
a bunch of new hats. Yeah.
Nice.
Anna, can you guess how you write the T
What?
on their forehead?
Oh, like what you would use?
Yeah.
Their blood, probably?
Yeah.
You do?
You can.
Oh.
Whatever you got.
I mean, it's not like you got a Sharpie.
This is weird. I don't want to be in this situation.
David made it weird. He took it there before he was talking about stripping people's clothes off. He just
Write a T on a person's forehead in their blood
So-
and then walk away.
What is the trivia question this week?
Oh,
It's an interactive one, David. I'm going to let you decide
Like bad
where this one goes. It's kind of like a choose your own adventure.
I like it.
All right. So, David, we've got one of 5 heat categories we can discuss. Which heat category do you want to pick?
The sun.
Flamin' Hot Cheetos.
Producer Alex, number 3.
All right.
Wow.
just the 3 numbers. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, Anna. So heat category 3 means we're dealing with temperatures between 85 and 88 degrees Fahrenheit.
Okay.
Okay. What type of work do you think would be most applicable? Easy, moderate, or hard?
Do I need to answer this or this
Yes, you need to tell me which one.
is okay?
'Cause it's like a chart here that we're using.
Did you say 85 to 88?
It's 85 to 88. Are you working easy? Are you doing easy work, moderate work, or hard work?
Easy?
Easy. Okay. So if you're doing easy work, this is according to the Army.
Mhm.
Okay. You're doing easy work, 85 to 88 degrees. Okay. First of all, how much water should you drink in an hour?
Okay.
First of all, how much water? And then how much rest should you have for every hour? So how many minutes of rest should you have for every hour worked?
Okay.
Okay. In order to avoid heat injury like
exhaustion.
exhaustion, dehydration, heat stroke, those types of things.
Okay.
So how many minutes per hour should you rest, and how much water per hour should you drink?
The bonus is if you answer that when you're working on the sun.
That would be impressive. What made you say the sun?
I thought you were talking like not 1 through 5, like level of heat. So I wanted to say like really hot.
You could have said 5.
I understand that now.
Okay. Okay.
From here on out, sun equals 5.
From here on out, I'm just going to ask Alex for feedback here.
Sounds good.
All right. So again, what are you going to do when you're working in 85 to 88 degrees heat? It's an easy level of work. How much water and how many minutes per hour should you be resting? That is the trivia question for t-shirt or hat.
All right. Well, before we get out of here this week, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You could also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. Finally, if you want to email the podcast, you can email any of us at Jeff, Anna, or David at IEN.com with email the podcast in the subject line. Finally, you can subscribe to our daily or weekly newsletters. Make sure you get the podcast in your inbox first. Also, remember that we go live at about 1:30 p.m. every Friday on YouTube. So, stop by and join us live. All right. For Jeff and Anna, I'm David Manti. This is the Today in Manufacturing podcast. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Today in Manufacturing podcast.